Hey everyone, Ormac here for story time again. This particular chapter, I think I mentioned last time, is called The Sending of Eight, and it starts with a prologue. So I will split this up as well, like I did last time. Prologue. The Discworld offers sights far more impressive than those found in universes built by creators with less imagination but more mechanical aptitude. Although the disk's sun is but an orbiting moonlet, its prominence is hardly bigger than croquet hoops. This slight drawback must be set against the tremendous sight of great Atun, the turtle upon whose ancient and meteor-riddled shell disk ultimately rests. Sometimes, in his slow journey across the shores of infinity, he moves his country-sized head to snap at a passing comet. But perhaps the most impressive sight of all, if only because most brains, when faced with the sheer galactic enormity of Atun, refuse to believe it, is the endless rimfall, where the seas of the disk boil endlessly over the edge into space. Or perhaps it is the rainbow, the eight-colored world-girdling rainbow that hovers in the mist-laden air over the fall. The eighth color is octarine, caused by the scatter effect of strong sunlight on an intense magical field. Or perhaps again, the most magnificent sight is the hub. There, a spire of green ice 10 miles high rises through the clouds and supports at its peak the realm of Dunmanifestin, the abode of the Disk Gods. The Disk Gods themselves, despite the splendor of the world below them, are seldom satisfied. It is embarrassing to know that one is a god of a world that only exists because every improbability curve must have its far end. Especially when one can peer into other dimensions at worlds whose creators had more mechanical aptitude than imagination. No wonder then that this god spend more time in bickering than in omnicognizance. And muting my laptop. On this particular day, blind Io, by dint of constant vigilance, the chief of the gods, sat with his chin on his hand, and looked at the gaming board on the red marble table in front of him. Blind Io had got his name because where his eye sockets should have been, there was nothing but 2 areas of blank skin. His eyes, of which he had an impressively large number, led a semi-independent life of their own. Several were currently hovering above the table. The gaming board was a carefully carved map of the Discworld, overprinted with squares. A number of beautifully modeled playing pieces were now occupying some of the squares. A human onlooker would, for example, have recognized in 2 of them the likeness of Bravd and the Weasel. Others represented yet more heroes and champions, of which the disc had more than adequate supply. Still in the game were Io, Offler the crocodile god, Zephyrus the god of slight breezes, Fate, and the Lady. There was an air of concentration around the board now that the lesser players had been removed from the game. Chance had been an early casualty, running her hero into a full house of armed gnolls, the result of a lucky throw by Offler, and shortly afterward, Night had cashed his chips, pleading an appointment with Destiny. Several minor deities had drifted up and were kibitzing over the shoulders of the players. Side bets were made that the Lady would be the next to leave the board. Her last champion of any standing was now a pinch of potash in the ruins of still smoking Ankh-Morpork, and there were hardly any pieces that she could promote to first rank. Blind Io took up the dice box, which was a skull whose various orifices had been stoppered with rubies, and with several of his eyes on the Lady, rolled 3 5s. She smiled. This was the nature of the Lady's eyes. They were bright green, lacking irises or pupil, and they glowed from within. The room was silent as she scrabbled in her box of pieces, and from the very bottom produced a couple that she set down on the board with 2 decisive clicks. The rest of the players, as one god, craned forward to peer at them. A Winegade Whifford and Fumfort of Clerk, said Offler the crocodile god, hindered as usual by his tusks. Well, will we? With one claw he pushed a pile of bone-white tokens into the center of the table. The lady nodded slightly. She picked up the dice cup and held it steady as a rock, yet all the gods could hear 3 cubes rattling about inside. Then she sent them bouncing across the table. A 6, a 3, a 5. Something was happening to the 5, however. Battered by the chance collision of several billion molecules, the die flipped onto a point and spun gently, came down a 7. Blind Isle picked up the cube and counted the sides. Come on, he said wearily. Play fair. Oh, the lady. She shows up occasionally. If you're curious, that's Lady Luck. But you don't tell that to her face or she won't help you. Alright, I'm going to split it here.